Thank you very much, Matthew, and a very good morning to all of you. I will do my best to project. As Matthew says, I work in central government in the Department for Transport, where I'm in charge of the active travel division. And my message to you today, I guess, is a very simple one, that getting more people to make their local journeys on foot or by bike is one of the cheapest, quickest and easiest ways we can help to decarbonise the transport sector. It's not rocket science. Decarbonising the transport sector is a massive challenge, but cycling and walking is a quick win. It always amazes me how many of our car journeys are so short, and journeys that could easily be done on foot or by bike. I think around half of car journeys in the UK are less than 5 miles, and those are exactly the sorts of journeys that often, not always of course, I mean, we can never shift all of those journeys to walking or cycling, but every one of those journeys that we do shift from the car to the bike or to a walk helps chip away at that massive total of carbon emissions. And of course, cycling and walking has loads of other benefits too. I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but it helps tackle the cost of living crisis because it's dead cheap. It promotes local economic growth by enabling high streets to thrive and regeneration. Making our town centres more attractive and more livable is a great way to get people to use their local shops, cafes and so on. So it really isn't rocket science. And all of the above is why the government has not only a statutory strategy on cycling and walking, but also a strategy called the Gear Change Plan, which was published in the early days of the pandemic. And just thinking back to those days 2 years ago, I think many of us saw just how different our streets could look and feel with much less traffic on them. You could hear birdsong, you could walk and cycle comfortably on local streets, and I think that gave people an insight into what might be possible if we could get more people out of their cars. Cycling often steals the limelight, but this is not just about cycling, it's about walking and all the little things that can be done to make places more walkable, whether that's better signage or more benches, better lighting, more trees for shade, more toilets, more crossing points, wider pavements, all of those things. So cycling always gets all of the noise, but walking is so important to this agenda too. The government has set up a new organisation called Active Travel England to work with local authorities, both in Kent and elsewhere, on the rollout of more and more cycle lanes and other active travel infrastructure. And this should be a real game changer. Active Travel England will be a much larger organisation than my team has been. It'll have real expertise in the planning system, in sort of engineering solutions, and it will work with local authorities to help maximise local authorities' chances of securing funding for active travel schemes. Active Travel England will be responsible for the government's active travel budget, and very soon it is due to launch a multi-year funding competition where it will invite local authorities to bid for funding for the next 3 years. Of course, I should add the caveat that the total amount of funding available, as with so much at the moment, will depend on the outcome of the 17th of November autumn statement. And I need to be honest with you about the scale of the challenges that we're facing. All departments, I think, are likely to be asked to make savings to help meet the economic challenges we're facing, so no part of the DFT's budget is safe from potential cuts. So I can't at this stage make any guarantees about exactly when we're going to launch that funding competition, which is a great frustration to me, as I'm sure it is to you. So while I can't make any guarantees on the funding, we have got some really powerful advocates for cycling and walking, both in DFT and elsewhere in government. Our Minister, Jessie Norman, is back in the hot seat as the Cycling and Walking Minister. He did the role himself from 2017 to 2019. He is a real champion for active travel, and he also knows a thing or two about the Treasury, having served as a minister there himself. So just let me offer a few reflections, because given everything I've said, you would think that this was such a no-brainer that everybody would be doing it. But the debate around cycling and walking does get very toxic, as I'm sure you're all aware. There's always a bit of tension between motorists and cyclists. Low-traffic neighbourhoods have become a real cause célèbre and generate a huge amount of noise on social media and elsewhere. I mean, frankly, taking road space away from motorists is always a controversial issue. Taking away parking spaces, taking away lanes in sort of arterial roads and so on, it's always a really difficult thing to do. And I think we made some mistakes, both in DFT and I think in the local authority world as well. I think back in 2020, many low-traffic neighbourhood schemes were introduced perhaps too hastily, without proper public engagement and consultation, which then generated a bit of a feeling among many motorists that things were being done to them that they didn't like. Now, I think we've all learnt lessons from that, but there's still a perception out there, I think, that cycle lanes and other cycling and walking interventions are somehow an anti-motoring thing and are sort of put in place with the sole aim of frustrating motorists. And I think there is some really important lessons about, as I said, about engagement with local communities, taking people with you on the journey. Also, the importance of designing schemes in the right way and to the right standards. Poor quality cycle lanes are of no use to anybody, and I think this really does need to be properly sort of thought through, which is where Active Travel England should help. I think the language that we use as well is really important here. Low traffic neighbourhoods perhaps has a negative feel to it and implies that we're restricting things, which is why many local authorities and others are now moving towards language around healthy neighbourhoods or livable neighbourhoods, which are much harder to argue against. So I want to keep it really short, so I will wrap up there. I mean, my concluding thoughts are that, as I said, these are uncertain times financially, and the politics and state of the public finances remain a bit challenging. But despite that, cycling and walking remains at the heart of many, many government agendas and has some really strong and powerful champions in Westminster. And the reasons for supporting this stuff are stronger than ever. We have a health crisis, we have a cost of living crisis, we have a climate crisis, and all of those reasons are, none of those reasons are going to go away. All of those reasons are going to remain very powerful arguments for this agenda. So I will keep it brief because I'm really keen to leave enough time for the questions and answers. So thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me.